I don't care if you're a designer. I don't care if you've got a creative bone in your body. I'm a firm believer that anybody can host a good mood meeting. And when I say mood meeting, that's kind of a designy word for a brainstorming meeting where you and your team discuss and kind of disseminate what the visual style for a project or an initiative needs to look like. Now, this could be a sermon series or a brand or just merch design or a big conference. But whatever the outcome is, your goal is to get your key people together and you'll have a healthy conversation around what should this thing look like. You want to leave that meeting with an answer to that question, and everybody feels good about it, and everybody's on the same page, and it's defined and it's done, and you're ready to hit the ground running. I've sat in some really good brainstorming meetings, and I've sat in some really bad ones, and I've actually run a couple hundred of them myself over the past couple of years working with churches and youth ministries. And so I've put together a couple of things that'll help you, some guiding lights, some principles that'll help you make a little bit more effective use of everyone's time as you're having this meeting. I'm a big believer, no matter what you're doing, you need to know why you're doing it before you jump in. So the goal here is to establish a clear visual direction for the project, event, activity that you're doing. Like that's it. You want to have the meeting and leave with a clear sense of where it needs to go visually. And today we're going to break down this into a couple of steps. And there's really before the meeting, during the meeting, and after. Before the meeting, you want to do a couple of things. One, you or whoever's hosting the meeting, prepare. You should be bringing some inspiration pieces to the table. If your team is able to push some stuff in that bucket as well, that's super fantastic. I typically will ask for a little bit of this from my clients, and then I'll take this and say, oh, if they like this, they might also like this. And I'll probably spend 30 minutes or an hour, depending on the type of project, looking through Pinterest and other places where I have a bunch of ideas saved, and I'll put together probably 15 to 20 inspiration pieces. Now, I know other designers who argue, hey, you want to do less, others who do more. You kind of find that sweet spot for yourself. But I typically know that I want to fill up 5, 6, 8 pages of a slide deck with different visual ideas, give everybody something to point at and say, ooh, I like that, or I really don't like that, and I can't say why. You want to have these pieces together so y'all can have that conversation as a team. Another really essential thing to do before the meeting is get the right people in the room. One of the filters that I will typically tell people, my clients anyway, is you want to get, I consider the stakeholders as people who have tipping power. Okay, so say the final idea comes across your plate and pick up your phone and you're going to text it to a couple of people. And if those people love it, you're stoked. And if they hate it, ooh, you're having some second thoughts about the whole concept now. Who are those people? Invite them to this meeting. Typically the sweet spot is 3 to 6 people. I found that if this group is too small, you're you and one other person, there's some other ideas and opinions and things you're not accounting for. You got some blind spots. On the flip side of that, if you've got too many people, you end up getting into this kind of big group think deal where you'll have little factions and groups that kind of think for themselves, and you end up the group can get dumber the bigger it gets. So you want to be careful that you're not inviting the entire youth group to this thing, or your entire leadership team in some cases, but picking key people that you feel like represent the group as a whole well, might have influence in the group, might have a good eye for these things, or might be good at hopping from idea to idea and having good, these don't have to be your finishers. These can be your starters, the people that dream big and have vision and have ideas. But you still want to balance that with okay, how are we going to pull this off? And this might be a great idea if we had a full budget and could do a photo shoot, but we're not doing that. So you can kind of trust your gut on what people to bring to this meeting. Again, I would just say keep the list tight and make them people that you trust. During the meeting, there's a couple of things that you can do, again, to keep this thing on the rails and make sure it is the best use of everyone's time. First of all, I like to thank everyone for coming. I feel like these types of things are hard to get everybody's schedules to align. I want to do one really good meeting, and I want to thank them and appreciate them for showing up and investing the time to make this thing great. But one of the other big keys is you want to make sure that somebody is leading the meeting. Yes, it's a group conversation. Yes, it is free-form brainstorming to a certain degree, but somebody's got to moderate. Somebody's got to keep everybody focused, keep everybody on task, and really kind of mediate the conversation. I've run into situations where, we're 30, 40 minutes into a meeting and this person over here hasn't said a word. And I'll ask them a question and invite them into the conversation because I feel like that person was invited for a reason. So I want to make sure that I'm getting their thoughts and notes into account. On the flip side of that, if somebody's really dominating the conversation, they may have great, amazing ideas, but I still want to make sure there's room for everybody to have a chance to speak into it. Another thing I like to do as early as possible is establish the tone for the project. What I mean by that is the visual style or feeling that somebody has when they look at the piece. So say they're looking at the final piece. Do they feel inspired, or do they feel like it's rootsy and hey, this is our thing, this feels local? Does it feel pretty subdued or introspective? Does it feel romantic? Does it feel exciting, or does it feel quiet? Any of these could be good adjectives that you want somebody to walk away from your event with. It just depends on what's right for what you're doing. So you guys have this conversation before you look at anything else, because this is going to be your North Star. You guys are going to weigh everything else again. Okay, this looks cool. We like this, but does it make us feel the way that we want people to feel when they show up to our event? Now, you're hosting the meeting. You got everybody flowing. You're being a great host at the party here, or moderator. You've established your tone together. Now you're going to walk through all those inspiration pieces that you guys looked at and really kind of just weigh them against the tone and kind of free think about okay, so this idea is cool, but the name is short. How would this work for our thing? Because our name is 4 words long. Is that going to fit? What's our backup plan? And really just thinking through all those different angles of how do these cool ideas we're looking at practically work, and how do they weigh against the tone and style that we're shooting for? Another thing that's really, really important for these things to go well is honesty. It is your job as the host of the meeting to make sure that everyone feels like it's a safe place to have an opinion and to air out their thoughts. It's really, really sad to me when I leave this meeting and then find out later that somebody didn't want to hurt my feelings. They're like, oh, you put in so much work for this thing. I just don't want to say anything and hurt and mess it up. No, this is the time. This is an open forum. Speak now or forever hold your peace, right? It's our job is to not come down on somebody who has an opinion that's different than yours or different than everyone else's. You want to air that out and say, okay, cool. We haven't thought about this angle. Why are you saying that? And invite them to speak into it. And the group may kind of evaluate and say, interesting thought. I don't think it's essential for this. Or, wow, so glad you said that. We hadn't thought of that yet. But now's the time to express. One of the things that I'll say in these meetings a lot of times is, it is as important for me, your host, to hear what you love as what you hate. So if I've gone through a 45-minute meeting and I haven't heard them say, I don't like something yet, that's not a good sign, right? That means we haven't quite hit hit all the bumpers and kind of our sandbox that we're trying to build together. So it is okay to argue as long as we end the meeting with everybody agreeing this is our North Star and this is where we're heading together. Okay, so you've had your meeting. Now it's time to do the hard thing, which is stick to your guns. You guys have gone up on the mountaintop, established this vision for the project with your trusted stakeholders. Now you need to stay the course. And so you'll take all your notes, you'll take everything down and hand it off to a designer. Maybe that's somebody that was in the room for the meeting, which is kind of ideal in some cases. And there may be other expressions or ideas or hey, we didn't think about this. And it may look a little different than you thought about when you were running through the actual mood meeting. But largely the seed, that North Star, that main idea that we're pursuing, stays the same through the whole project. You might develop it more, or it might not be blue instead of red, but the overall tone, feeling, style, and goals for the project remain the same throughout. So you're building on top of things rather than kind of guessing and moving around, squirreling around. Hope this helps you. Share it with a friend, and I've also got some free downloads for you, like a sample of what a ready to meet version of this deck looks like, and also a blank one that you can download and fill up with your own stuff. Love you guys. Adios.